Well, welcome everybody to part 3 of my LASH recap series, and if you watched parts 1 and 2, I commend you for your extraordinary patience. In this third and final installment, I'm going to talk about the hostels that I stayed at. I'm just going to go out to the trail, out to the hostels, and show you some video clips I took while I was there. I'm going to quickly review the 9 hostels that I stayed at. These aren't all the hostels that you can find in this 480-mile stretch, it's just the 9 that I stayed at. Stay tuned. Okay, before we go out there, let's just go over some statistics. I gathered this from reading my journal. At the end of every day, I would put on my phone a little bit of journal of what went on for the day. And the reason I take these statistics at the end is just to help me dial in my equipment, decide what was useful, what wasn't useful. So out of these 34 nights that I was on the trail, I spent 11 nights in my tent. And of those 11 nights, 4 of them were at stealth sites. In other words, unofficial campsites, no facilities there. A lot of times there would be a water supply, but not always. But there'd be no privy, there'd be no bear hanging equipment, anything like that. I spent 11 nights in shelters, and I spent 12 nights in hostels. So you can see it was about a third of the time in my tent, about a third of the time in shelters, and about a third of the time in hostels. And while in the hostels, I did manage to take 11 showers. I did manage to do laundry 10 times. And I had 2 slack pack days. And a slack pack is when you're at a hostel, you leave most of your equipment at the hostel, you get somebody to drop you off some distance from the hostel, 15 or 16 miles for the 2 days that I did, and you hike back to the hostel with a much lighter pack than you would normally do. It's kind of like it's not an off day because you're still doing a considerable number of miles, but it's an easier day. Other things I used while I was out there, well, I did use my rain gear on 6 different days. I used my trowel 3 days, and you know what that's for campsites that didn't have a privy, outhouse, whatever you want to call it. I did have to dig a cat hole, and that only happened 3 times out of 34 days, so that's pretty good. Bear hangs. I did 6 bear hangs, and when I say I did a bear hang, I mean these 6 bear hangs were ones where I had to do everything myself. I had to find the tree, I had to hang up my stuff. There are bear cables at a lot of the sites, especially these shelter sites, where you actually clip your food bag to a carabiner, and there's a pulley system. You can pull it up to the cable, and that's the same thing as a bear hang, but it's all set up for you. You don't really have to do anything except use it. And for boils, that means that's how many water boils I did. So in other words, 37 times out of these 34 days, I had to do a boil in order to make a meal. And the reason I keep track of that is that the canisters, you can't tell how much is in them, so it's good to keep track of how many boils you get out of a canister so you can estimate how many more you can get. Like, do I need to replace my canister for my next trip, or I can just go with the half-filled one that I have? And then finally, of course, I did 480 miles. So let's go out to the trail and let's look at the hostels and stay around to the end, because I'm finally going to give you the real answer to the question of what's harder, through hiking or doing long section hikes when it comes to completing the Appalachian Trail. So I'm at the Around the Bend hostel. I got a private room. They gave me like a little cabin with a room in it. I got an AC. For 2 nights, I'm going to actually be sleeping like a regular human being. I had 4 nights on the trail, 4 nights in my tent, and I'll do a slack pack tomorrow. Another bed, though there's nobody else here. And slack pack tomorrow will be 16 tough miles, but at least I won't be carrying my full pack. I can launder my stuff. I can launder my body, which is nice. Well, today I'm on what's called a slack pack day. Most of my gear is back at the hostel in a private room. I just packed the minimum. I got maybe 10 pounds on my back. I say the minimum, I mean 6 pounds of it is water. I've got my first aid kit with me, raincoat just in case. And in case something happens that I get stuck out here, I don't have a sleeping bag or anything, but I at least have my puffy jacket, which will keep me warm if I have to hunker down in a shelter because something goes wrong. The idea is, with such a light pack, I also have food, of course, and a headlamp, but with such a light pack, I should be able to make good mileage. I'm going uphill. This is a 1,000-foot climb it starts with. It's a problem with the Appalachian Trail. Most of the drop-off points are located at the bottom of a hill. So in the morning, you always start on your first day, or if you're being dropped off, you always start with a steep uphill. The idea is I should be able to get 16.6 miles in. A lot easier time than if I were hauling the full 36 pounds. Like I said, I think my pack's maybe 10 or 12 pounds.
East after about a month, I was doing like 4 to 5 times a week, and got to where I could do it with a loaded pack and leaving people in
The main room. Well, I'm at some place called the NOC. It's where I got a bunk for the night. Talk about a place with lots of activity. They do kayaking. Oh, all sorts of neat stuff here. Wow, look at all these people. This is the Nantahala Outdoor Center. I'm trying to follow their little map here that they gave me. I'm supposed to walk to the back of something and across these tracks, but I don't know. It looks like there's a bridge up here. So that's it. That's my bunk for the night. At least I can recharge everything. Go take a shower. It's priority one. One of the nice things about the AT is occasionally being able to stop at a restaurant to eat a burger. So here I am, like a loser, table for one. Well, I'm walking down to Fontana Village. One of the advantages of coming in the off season, hiking the way I am, is a lot of times, you know, there's rooms available where there might not otherwise be. One of the disadvantages is not all the services are there. It's a 2-mile walk from the trail. Figure I've gone 160, another 2 is not going to make that much of a difference. But they do have a room for me, but no shuttle. Shuttle's stopped on June 1st. I'm at the Fontana Village Resort that I got this room at. And compared to the outdoor center, which was, you know, you get what you pay for. This is more expensive, but seems nice. Very, very nice. Housekeeping. This is a real hotel room. This is like, okay, I want to keep everything neat. I want to not mess them up, but the first thing I'm going to do is hit the shower. I'm at the Standing Bear Farm Hostel. It's a real working farm, apparently, and hostel. And I've got a private room on the 2nd floor of the treehouse. There's a guy on the 1st floor of the treehouse. So I got to be quiet up here so as not to keep him awake. But here's my room. And it's clean and comfy. Small. But one doesn't need much. My honey sent me some my continuous glucose monitor sensors. So I can apply one tonight and hope that the adhesive will stick overnight after I shower. But she also loaded a bunch of resupply in this box. So by the looks of it, I may not have to resupply as much as I thought. Certainly I don't have to resupply any of the electrolytes. And I've got these like 4 evening meals. Plus I've got a 5th one of my own, you know, that I still have with me. So I just have to look for breakfast food and like power bars. This is great. Thanks, Star. Love you. Well, this is a first for me. Had to use a washboard to wash my clothes. There isn't a dryer there. I got a lot of dirt and stuff out of them, though I'm sure they're not as clean as they would be with a washing machine. This place here has a kitchen. Excuse me. Kitchen, so I can have supper tonight. Are these things over here like a hiker box? Let's see. Looks like it's been there for a while. Ramen, stuff like that. Yeah.
My dad sent all those.
Oh yeah, is this a hiker box?
Yes.
Wow. Well, I'm taking one.
They're good.
There's the bunkhouse. I thought, since they say this is the most popular hostel on the trail, I would have thought it was higher capacity, but it's really not a lot of capacity. It's got a bunkhouse. I've got a private room. There's a private room downstairs for me. My private room probably could, like if it was a couple, 2 people could be in it. There's one king-size bed in there. Up here is the resupply. I will be like a kid in a candy shop up here later. Because they have good resupply here. I was looking all over for the oatmeals. That's what I have in breakfast. I would take some snacks. This is the like junk food that I can't eat normally. Yeah, they've got all I need with resupply because Darlene sent me a bunch of Mountain House meals, so I'm good, because there's actually, the next resupply is only 30 miles away, which I probably will skip. But this is good, it's good. Dr. Pepper and everything else. I have to bring my list up here before I resupply. And I can get eggs, 50 cents each. That's way cool. So I can have a good breakfast tomorrow. I can make my own eggs. And they have tortillas. Cool. So that's good for my peanut butter sandwiches. So I have to take an inventory of my stuff and see what I need. Well, folks, my wonderful wife has browbeat me into taking a 0 day. It's been nearly 3 weeks I've been on the trail. 19 days, not quite 3 weeks. A 0 day is actually good for you, just to give your body time to rest and recuperate. So here's my room for the next 3 nights, because tonight, because I just walked in here 12 miles after a 20-mile day the day before. Then I've got the 0 day tomorrow, and I'm staying that night. And then the next day, I'm going to do a slack pack from Allen Gap back to here, which is 15 miles. And not only is it good to get a slack pack in, less stress on the shoulders and everything, and you're carrying a lot less weight, but also there's a camping restricted area north of here anyway that I will have to get through. So this just like works out really well. There's a lot of bear activity, so by me doing this 15-mile slack pack, I don't have to worry about the camping out during that stretch. And then apparently that restricted area ends a little bit north of where I'll start again in the morning, so I'll easily get through that. Well, this is supper prepared by Meatball. That's his trail name. I've actually just met him and we haven't discussed any personal stories yet. He'll be out in a moment. A few things about trail life. It's the hiker box. I put a headlamp in there because I replaced mine. And loaner clothes, so when you're laundering all your stuff, you have something to wear. Took a night here, took a 0 day. Next day did a slack pack. That slack pack, 15 miles. I'm glad I did it. Thinking about climbing out of here with a full pack, it's kind of scary. It was a tough climb down, actually, back into town. I was headed north to south. And if I had just gone on normally without that slack pack day, I would have been hiking out of town, south to north. So around 9:30, shuttle driver's going to come around and bring us back up to Allen Gap, where last time we headed south, we being me and Meatball. And instead I'm going to head north. Probably end up hiking with Meatball for another day. I suspect we're going to end up at the same campground because of the late start. Only going to be able to put in about 12 miles today. But, you know, with a full pack and full resupply, that's probably a good amount. Well, now I'm at Uncle Johnny's hostel. I just had a hostel like 4 nights ago. Time's flying. Yeah, 3 nights out on the trail, 2 in a tent, 1 in a shelter. But rainy day. Got some clothes wet that I didn't expect to get wet, so I figured I'd do some laundry. I mean, this is a typical bunk room, what you get for 50 bucks for the night, a private room, so I can spread my stuff out. It's supposed to rain tomorrow, so I'm gonna have to like pack and prepare for rain. I'm hoping to get into town tonight, and I just have a craving for KFC or something of that sort. I can only eat the junk food when I'm on the trail because I got to be back to being a good boy, so to speak, once I'm done. So this is it for today. It was a near zero day. I got down here just before the rain really started coming down hard. And they said, oh, here, take this room. We're in the middle of a meeting. So I really didn't get a tour of the place or anything until after that, doing my laundry now. Okay, I'm at Uncle Johnny's hostel. The outfitter store is actually pretty good. They have sleeping pads and stuff like that. It's small. They have most of the food I want. They don't have oatmeal, and I like having oatmeal in the morning. There is a shuttle into town at 5, and I think I'm going to see if I can pick up something like a KFC meal. I mean, I'm not allowed to eat that stuff in my normal life. Just did a laundry, by the way. But I'm going to take that shuttle into Erwin, Tennessee. And that's where I am. So this is the place. You can see it's very rustic. They got a nice pavilion out there. I see a sign that says hammock hangout. That's pretty cool. So he provides a place for people who want to sleep in their hammocks. They can use those posts there to hang their hammocks. Hi, doggy. How you doing? That's the hostel dog. Hi, how you doing? Doo-doo-doo. I'm at the Mountain Harbor hostel in Roan Mountain, Tennessee. This really, I'm glad I came in here. I was actually worried I wasn't going to be able to get a bunk. I could have got a private room in the bed and breakfast, but that was there's the kitty. That I thought was overkill. Excuse me, kitty. And I decided to get a bunk room, be sociable, speak to the other hikers. This is without a doubt has the cleanest showers I've ever seen in a hostel. I didn't happen to use this one because somebody was in it, so I had to use one where I had to duck down a little. It's really for shorter people. But certainly it was, there's where I took the shower, yeah. Most hostels, it's all gross at the bottom and everything, but no, this place is beautiful. Sorry about turning the light out there. So here's the bunk room. It's my bunk over there. There's the famous map. I gotta get that map. I just had breakfast at this hostel / bed and breakfast, and it was wonderful. My eyes were very big compared to my stomach. I ate like one of everything. French toast, fancy toppings. They had real maple syrup, but they had something else that I wanted to try that was local. So I ended up not having any of the maple syrup on the French toast. Deviled eggs, sausages. Didn't have any bacon, but I can't complain about that. So that down there is the hostel building itself. Over there is where I had hamburger last night. They got a little, restaurant-ish sort of thing there. Very good. I sat at a table with a couple hikers, but also with a gentleman who clearly wasn't a hiker, which is always fun because, they have all these questions and they're always curious about what the hiking experience is like. So it's really nice to talk to somebody about that. So this is the most interesting shower setup. That bucket gets filled with hot and cold water as separate things, and it comes raining down on you. That's really cool. How does the light turn on? I don't know. But anyway, yeah, that's going to be an interesting shower experience. I did find out from the proprietor here, the lady who checked me in, that you know, that I said my options seem to be 15 miles or 25 miles. That's really true, because there is no camping allowed in that 10-mile stretch in between, so there's no way my rules are going to make it. She said from here to Damascus is 2 days if you want to push it. I don't want to push it. It's going to be 3 days. 2 more nights on the trail, and then hopefully my 3rd day will be a Lady Di's bed and breakfast. So, you know, sometimes the trail dictates your schedule. So I'm sitting here at the Boots Off hostel. Nice little place, you know, rustic theme, but very well done. You know, like I had said, when you're trying to decide how many miles to put in, it's not always under your control. Today my choices were 15 miles or 25 miles. The 15 miles got me here, and all my rules said I couldn't go another 10 because I got here around 3:30. I did stop and enjoy the waterfalls and things like that. And to put another 10 on, even if I was up to it, would have put me at best at 7:30, so that goes past my 7 o'clock rule. The other choice I would have had was just continue on and apply the 6 o'clock rule. Once it turned 6, start looking for a campsite. Well, as it turns out, that would have been an abject failure because the owner here told me that the camp, there's no camping in that stretch. It's not allowed. There's a few places on the trail where that sort of thing is restricted. They don't want people camping at large, as they would call it. So it's just as well that I got lucky that I stopped here. I'm in the bunkhouse. I got the pink bunk for some reason. And there's going to be a run to town. I'm just going to get like a Subway sandwich for dinner or something. I have enough food, but like Darlene said, well, don't waste it. Bring it, you know, some of the prepackaged, you know, hiking meals. Just bring with me when I go for the 100-mile wilderness, which I'm probably not going to do this year. Probably going to wait until next year, because if I were to do it this year, my feeling would be I was just doing it for the sake of completing the AT. And I want to actually enjoy that trip and maybe get somebody to go with me. Well, every hostel is different. This is really a bed and breakfast and hostel, which I like those the best because they don't just serve hikers on the famous map that we always see. Got to get a copy of this map. This is Lady Di's bed and breakfast. So I got bed and breakfast with it. So breakfast in the morning. I get picked up at 10. Lady Di actually thru-hiked the trail in 2019. And that's always the best because people who've thru-hiked know what services hikers really need. Though I have actually been at a hostel in Burke's Garden last year where the guy had never thru-hiked the trail and didn't even do a whole lot of hiking from what I could tell, from what he told me. And he had an excellent hostel, just had a good eye for what they would need. This is one of the private rooms. There's a gazebo out here. Just to give you an idea of what it's like here. She does your laundry. And in several rooms. This is the my bunk. This room has 4 other bunks, 4 other bunks in it. Not likely to get filled. I'm like really off season here. And the advantage to that is places like this are usually easy to get a room at because they're not full up. Disadvantage is some of the places will shut down actually, like around the bend shuts down after, shortly, well, not shortly after the bubble, but they shut down when it just becomes not profitable. This is why I like bed and breakfast, because this is atypical. It's a beautiful clean shower. A lot of hostels, the showers leave something to be desired. So that's a quick look at the hostels I stayed at. Every one is different, and every one of these is different than the ones that you'll find elsewhere. Some of the other notable ones I've stayed at, there was the Rock and Soul, which was in Pennsylvania. There was, I think the Stumble Inn was the name of the one that I stayed in Virginia, Fort Royal, near Fort Royal, Virginia. There's always the Hiker's Welcome, which is just trail south of Mount Moosilauke in New Hampshire. It's the first one as you enter the White Mountains. That is the hostel that you stay at. So let's look at through hikes versus long section hikes. First, there's the physical requirement. For a through hike, I see a lot of through hikers getting repetitive motion injuries. Those, I'm sure they happen on long section hikes, but my section hikes have been on the order of 500 miles, and I only had once. I had something that you might consider a repetitive motion injury. I did twist an ankle, 2 ankles, but really, like when I dislocated my shoulder, that wasn't from repetitive motion. And really, the ankle twists weren't really repetitive motion. It was just something that can happen out on the trail. You can get injured. But the repetitive motion injuries, I think, happen for people who are doing through hikes more, is because their cardio conditioning outstrips their musculoskeletal conditioning, so to speak. In other words, cardiovascularly, they can go many, many miles, probably more than they should allow themselves to, because they're putting a lot of stress on their muscles and on their joints. And I think that's where the repetitive motion injuries come for people who are on through hikes, is because they're trying to make miles. After a while, just getting the mileage in kind of becomes the priority, because they have a limited time frame to complete their hike. So that is a problem that through hikers have. Some people who do section hikes will also have them. I haven't, to tell you the truth. I mean, I go out there and I'm only doing 16 miles a day, so I'm not really subjecting myself to those things, whereas the through hikers sometimes are. Psychologically, let's just take a look. At one point on this hike, I was 300 miles in, and when I started that day, I thought about it and I said, well, I've got 180 miles to go. Psychologically, I could handle that. I had been out there for a while. I'd been out there for, if it was 300 miles, it would have been just over 3 weeks. But I could handle the thought of continuing on for 180 miles, because that was 2 weeks at the most. But if I was through hiking, at that same point in the hike, a through hiker would traditionally start the same place I did, a northbounder would start at Amicalola Falls and then hike northward like I did. When they stepped out on the trail that very same day that I had 180 miles to go, they would have 1,800 miles to go. That's psychologically very different. The thought of 1,800 miles to go when I've done 300, 6 times as far to go as I've already done, I think I would have had trouble grasping that and handling the thought that I still had to do that. It probably wouldn't be fun anymore for me. And I think a lot of through hikers have to deal with that. They get through it, obviously. They get into the mid-Atlantic states where it's easier, so they can get through it. But for me, that would have been a big problem. Logistics and financial considerations. Well, you have a freer schedule with a LASH. Your time constraints are a lot less, because a through hiker has to make 2,200 miles in a certain amount of time, and there's a little leeway on each side because not everybody starts on the same day. But in general, with a LASH, I mean, I was able to go off season, so to speak. That's why I got so many hostel rooms and bunks, because there was no competition for the space. And there's fewer dollar constraints with long section hikes. And what I mean by that is I don't have to stretch a budget over 5, 6, or 7 months. I only have to stretch a budget over 5 weeks. And while I look back and say I spent quite a bit of money on this hike, it was less than I would have spent on a 1-week family vacation. So the money, the finances, at least for me, are easier to spread them out over several years rather than trying to, fit them into a shorter window. So I think it's time to admit that, at least for me, through hiking the AT would be much harder than what I've been doing, which is doing long section hikes. and piecing together all the pieces from the trail. So there's the honest answer. Thanks for listening.